volcano. I'll call it a volcano. The smoke, the oil coming out of the top of the volcano on their television feed is just floating out. You don't have any pressure to speak of behind that, and never did.
Yeah, that's interesting for sure. Now I know that, hey Andrew, I know that the Intel Hub had some interesting information about the location of the rovers. Can you expand on that a little bit? Because we're obviously not looking at the same thing.
Now, what I was seeing there were a couple of rovers on the floor, and it seems everything seems to be totally stable, and then all of a sudden there's just an explosion of gases, and the typical brownish red stuff that we've been seeing, but it's coming out violently. I mean, everything. If it were a storm in the wind, it would look like 50-mile-an-hour winds taking the trees halfway over. I mean, that's how much violence, the force and pressure those blasts are creating. But beyond that, what they've got is they've got proof that BP essentially had 2 drilling sites, and they abandoned the first site and went with the second site. But according to their own internal documents and the eastings and westings given on the rovers, most of what we've been seeing there, if it's not in the fish tank, you're seeing drill site number 1 that was abandoned. And that's just, it's another interesting little bit of the information that's slowly eking out about the whole thing.
Right. I've heard about the fish tank theory, and I think it was Henning that actually brought that up to begin with. And I myself, I kind of don't know what to believe when it comes to this, because John, we did some research on that, and I think it was the Sulu Sea, right, that we came out with if we plugged it in as Latin long?
Oh, yeah, the Sulu Sea, and the interesting thing about it is that it comes up to, I don't think it was BP, it was an Exxon oil field, and of course Exxon is a subsidiary of BP, so that's pretty peculiar, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. But go ahead.
I just wanted to say, since we were looking at that website earlier, I got in my closet and pulled out my handy U.S. Army Total Student Training Guide to Nuclear, Biological, Chemical Weapons. I've been looking over it, and that corrects it. It falls in a very interesting category because it essentially, most nerve agents and chemical agents, most chemical agents are gone. Once you spray them, their persistency is fairly low, and they dissipate and they become harmless. This thing, this corrects it. On the other hand, this is something that it bioaccumulates. It goes from one organism to the next, and it climbs the food chain, and it really, really persists. So, it falls into a whole other category that's not even in this book. Just wanted to note that.
Yeah. Now, Griff, as far as Agenda 21 is concerned, for anybody that doesn't understand what Agenda 21 is, it's the depopulation plan of the powers that be. Do you think that this situation here, I mean, coupled with the other stuff, do you think we're seeing that the WebBot predictions start to kind of take hold or take form?
Do you mean with the evacuation and like of the Gulf area?
Right, and not to mention that, but we have this oil spill up in Michigan now. And it's crazy. They're evacuating up there.
Here, there's so many things going on tonight. I'm getting email out of the Gulf right now.
Beautiful.
It's if I had 20 hands and 50 hours a day, I would have a hard time keeping up with what's coming. But it's an exciting time. I wouldn't miss it for the world. I hope I can be around for another 20 or 30 years to help in the rebuilding after this goes down, because it is going down. Everything is accelerating, it seems. It's no question in my mind that the events in the Gulf will continue to play out, and the people will eventually evacuate out of that area. And when that happens, you're going to set dominoes going in every direction, falling to the right and to the left, and nobody's going to be able to handle what comes after that. Certainly not the government. Nobody is going to be able to manage it. It's going to run itself. So I think it's an agenda. I think it's being played. It's more than one agenda. The agenda in 21 the documents. They're available on the internet. You can search Google and find all of that information, and then a couple weeks of study should bring you up to speed. But it's a takeover. It's a transition. It's a changing of world management of the people, their mindset. It's Brave New World, 1984, Fahrenheit 451, all at the same time, and you can see it. If you have, to quote the Christian Bible, if you have eyes to see and ears to hear, you can understand that the pieces of you are part of your life every day. Transnational corporations, big corporations, have bought into the diversity concept, their concept of diversity, with the racial profiles and the racial equality and the homosexual agendas built into their corporate mandates, and the employers are fearful of saying and doing the wrong thing. That's part of the Agenda 21 programs. And there are many, many, many other parts that feed into the big Agenda 21 program that's part of your life every day, and you don't even know it. So it's hard for the average person to come into this and understand what I'm talking about. It's only taken me 30 years, 20 years, something like that, and concentrated for the last 11 years, every day, 10 hours a day for the last 11 years looking at these things to understand. And then it's taken my background also to be able to put the pieces together and make sense out of it. So the average person sitting in the Midwest will not be able to do it adequately. They may pick up the bottom line, maybe, after we repeat it 15 or 20 times, but they will not be able to understand it like I do. We have several things to break tonight, stories. Joe, you should find it all very interesting, and it supports what we're saying here tonight. Back to you.
Oh, very good, very good. The reason why I brought up that website, folks, just so you know, and it's out of the government's own mouth, exactly what they classify as a chemical attack. And the fact of the matter is this fits all of their criteria for a chemical attack. That should scare the crap out of everybody listening, out of anybody that lives down there, out of anybody that lives in this country.
Well, and you know what, Joe? I just want to tell you, I'm simulcasting on Blog TV, and somebody is telling me that up in, Vermont and New Hampshire, that everyone's getting sick, sore throat, canker sores, vomiting, headaches, and diarrhea. And she's concerned that it's Corexit coming down in the rain.
Yeah,
it's just amazing.
It's tough to say, It's really tough to say because there's been absolutely no precedent set for something like this on such a massive scale. So it's hard to say if that's what it is. And without adequate testing, if they can collect the rainwater and see if they can get it tested, that's, there are tests that can be done to identify this stuff. But we're running into a time now where it's going to start getting very, very dicey and very soon. And that's why for the last 4 weeks or so, we've been harping so much on getting yourself and your family prepared as soon as humanly possible. And as much as within your means to do so. If you do live down in the Gulf region, I strongly recommend, if you haven't left already, to do so now. I mean, I understand that, there may not be the resources to make a move, or you may have a job that you're tied into or whatever, but let me tell you, I think the long-term effects of exposure to the things that are going on down there are going to be detrimental to yourself and your family, especially if you have children. And that's the one thing that scares the crap out of me, is having to see my children suffer. And I couldn't even imagine. So with that said, Griff, you want to expand a little bit on what you've got, some of the stuff you've got to break tonight?
Well, I wanted to first mention the transfer of the chemistry of the Gulf to the